Some say that only Jews are right, Quran 2, 130. 5. Some say that only Jews are right, the chosen people in God's sight, while some maintain the Christians are the noble and the rising star. Then Islam arose as a kind of alternative for the blind, as I am not welcome in any church, mosque or synagogue. I lay hold on the faith that spurred Abraham to believe God's word, that he alone is God on earth. I care not for the universe, a jackass on the road I be. I bray at every one I see, but never bray to God above. Earth is the place I know for love. The faith of the Quran is 1 Quran 2, 130. 6. The faith of the Quran is one hardly ever seen under sun. It takes as certain every book from Abram to Muhammad's nook. It does declare the Bible true, as well as the Quran in view, without making excuses or claiming the books are lost from store. It does not set one prophet up above the others in their cup. Where is that faith here among men or even women come again? The only ones I know who make no distinction of true or fake among the prophets, and who fail to deny the books as a grail, are birds and beasts, not humankind. Let them go on feasting, well wined. I throw my asinine lot with the animals instead of myth. The ones who believe as I do, Quran 2, 130. 7. The ones who believe as I do are on the right path and in view. Those who come to reject the way of any prophet in God's pay, they are schismatics, who may rise to meet their punishment for prize. It's not my fault. I am just an ass. I let theology just pass. God hears and knows what people do. He can control unruly crew by his own will. It's not for me to rate on their fidelity. Baptism of Allah is mine, Quran 2, 130. 8. Baptism of Allah is mine. Whoever heard of an ass fine baptized in church by priest or pope? They rather lead us with a rope. None ever stopped to pity such a foal of ass with grace in touch. If God is merciful, I say, I need no human sort of play. The people want to argue with Quran 2, 130. 9. The people want to argue with each other about Allah's myth, and some say that he's a moon god, and others claim that name with prod. The heart of a man is perverse. Those who hate Allah's name are worse than those who keep the Bible sure and think that they have a faith pure. Is not El of the Bible name also of great Canaanite shame? So even if the lie were true, that Allah is a name to rue, it would make no more difference than it does when the Bible in span calls God of Abraham by El, a pagan name, by any spell. Eloah of the Bible, it is spelt exactly to a fit as Allah in Holy Quran. The Hebrew and Arabic spawn are just alike. So if you hate the name Allah, you must relate to Eloah in the same way to be consistent for your pay. Besides that, the Chaldean name appearing in some Bible claim is also Allah. So 3 tongues combine in one name on the rungs. But if men stop to think a while and reason without wicked guile, they might find T here is no reason here to be divided in their fear. And that would be a tragic thing, to have no excuse in the wing for murder and for hatred's hope around the world in human scope. But T here is no danger, peace will come. Men flee from reason more in some than from the plague and poverty. We're sure of their perfidity. It might be good to take note well, Quran 2, 140. It might be good to take note well of the facts of the case in spell. The fact is, Abraham was not a Jew or Christian in his lot. Neither were Isaac or his brother, the bowman Ishmael or another, good Jacob or his 12 sons either. So missionaries take a breather. If none of those folk in their way belong to faith's established sway, then neither should an ass like me join church or synagogue in spree. If neither of those two are right, for all their human gas and spite, Then all religions might as well with all adherents go to hell. The people past are dead and gone. Quran 2, 140. 1. The people past are dead and gone and will have their reward at dawn of the last day. But what they pay has nothing to do with my way. They may have done great deeds of worth, but they have finished on the earth, and I'll get no reward for that, nor punishment for them out flat. Each gets the fruit of his own hand, and what he himself does on land. I bide my time and swish my tail, and wait for God who will not fail. Fools say the way you turn in prayer. Quran 2, 140. 2 Fools say the way you turn in prayer should never change under the air. If once you face Jerusalem, you ought never to change from them. But God is great, and God is good, and tells folk to do as they should. And he may guide to east or west, or north or south, as he sees best. God made Muhammad witness of Quran 2, 143. God made Muhammad witness of his truth and righteousness, and love, and set him over people to make up a folk in the right pew. He set those people up to be a witness to the world in fee. From Allah to Muhammad, and from Muhammad to righteous band, and from that band to all the world. The chain of the right way unfurled. Alas, both band and world have failed in the commission God unveiled. So let the donkeys everywhere rise up and bray in secret lair of the truth vouchsafed from all time. A donkey's is a life of rhyme. Direction of prayer from the day. Quran 2, 140. 4. Direction of prayer from the day when Ahmed turned around to pray had been toward Makkah. Take a bow and whirl like dervish anyhow. Let's make direction of the prayer. Quran 2, 145. Let's make direction of the prayer a test of faith and everywhere, and see the vanity of such, since people will not think as much. Each man and woman and each child, they all follow their desires wild, and no one asks what God requires, but simply takes his favorite choirs. There are just 10 things in the book that God himself came down and shook humanity to tell them right. Nobody keeps those things in sight. So why get hot about their prayers and where they turn with their confereras? I'd add to 10 2 more in turn. Don't drink anything you can burn, and do not consume donkey meat, even if you think that's a treat. A porker is another thing not mentioned in Decalogue's string. The Bible folk in fact know well. Quran 2, 146. The Bible folk in fact know well. The Bible tells to Israel what's right and wrong, but they still choose to hide it from the others' views. Instead they have their own desires, their own theology inspires, and so they will deny outright what's written there in black and white. A man should always be in doubt. Quran 2, 140. 7. A man should always be in doubt, considering the human route. They have no mind, they have no will, they only have a pill and swill. But here is no doubt that God above, or wherever he stands in love, has the monopoly on truth for jackass, human maid or youth. God turns each man towards a goal. Quran 2, 140. 8. God turns each man towards a goal, and women too, it seems. That goal is all that's good for soul and fills up human dreams. So let the human race strive hard to find the good and do, and every donkey braying bard will praise them in their pew. God tells the people they should go. Quran 2, 149. 150. God tells the people they should go toward the sacred mosque in Ro, that's found in Makkah, far or near, and there find Allah's word and hear. The fact is, donkeys also trek the pilgrimage as humans beck, though humans never stop to think of donkey pilgrimage in link. Now that the omnibus is here and popular with human gear, Few donkeys get to make the trip. Humankind thinks that speed is hip. Muhammad came here to recite Quran 2, 151. 152. Muhammad came here to recite the verses of Quran outright as service of remembrance for the folk with no knowledge in store, who could not mind the Hebrew Psalms or read the Torah from their palms. God promises to those who spend their speech in memory to lend to God the praise and glory of the humble of the earth in love, that he'll take on his tongue the name of those reciters just the same, as humans say the name of God in dervish worship on the sod. And God recites their names in love in the angelic courts above. I pray that he will also speak the names of jackasses and weak, and make them his remembrance dear, and hold them to his heart and near. Allah is with those who are known. Quran 2, 150. 3. Allah is with those who are known to persevere in patience grown. Has anyone here seen a man as patient under a load span as is a donkey on the road? Or even man with such a load? No, it would be a lie to claim a man's as patient in the game. The promise of Quran must be made to the jackass by decree. God's with the donkey, but not with the human scum with faith in myth. The body slain in Allah's way. Quran 2, 150. For the body slain in Allah's way, for righteousness from day to day, is resurrected from the ground by angel and the trumpet sound, when Allah's power falls on the earth, to call to him all those of worth who martyred by the evil one, find that they have not died, but one. God tests with hunger and with fear. Quran 2, 150. 5. God tests with hunger and with fear, with loss of life and loss of gear. But good news for such people is that patient perseverance is rewarded by Jehovah true. No matter what species in view, a human being even may receive reward instead of pay. When evil days fall on an ass. Quran 2, 156. When evil days fall on an ass, and most are evil as they pass, the donkey says within his heart, I am just one of Allah's part. To him I do belong, and I return to him beneath the sky, and in his fond embrace I'll find the pleasure of body and mind. Though days of mine as a jackass. Quran 2, 150. 7. Though days of mine as a jackass may pass in weary labors crass, and evening find my weary bones are stretched in sound of sighs and groans, such ones I know are those God finds most precious, and in mercy binds to his heart, and in grace bestows guidance. To gardens wherein grows the verdure of donkey's desire, the comforts for all things here dire. Let every jackass on the earth look forward to gardens of worth. Safa and Marwa in their place. Quran 2, 150. 8. Safa and Marwa in their place are out of bounds for donkey's race, but still God's mercy and his grace is given to donkeys every place. God curses men and women too. Quran 2, 150. 9. God curses men and women too. It is too bad for what they do. They hide the signs that God sent down upon the people of the town. The people of the book may rage, they may deny what's on the page, but if the signs are hidden, then they have become unlucky men. No donkey hides the truth of God, not even when struck by a rod, but shows by ear and eye and voice God's glory, while his braves rejoice. If anyone repents, he'll find. Quran 2, 160. If anyone repents, he'll find that God is quick to change his mind and give him paradise. He sought without price, without money bought. Those who reject the gift of God. Quran 2, 160. 1. Those who reject the gift of God, the faith of peace and love on sod, receive God's curse and angels too, as well as humankind's in view. I do not speak of what will think jackasses of such on the brink of their destruction when they say there is no resurrection's day. The punishment of hell is great. Quran 2, 162. The punishment of hell is great, and it will never more rebate. But eternal is every fate of those therein. For their lot there is no respite, their penalty is not made light, but death eternal is their plight who fail to win. Your God and mine, O man of flesh, Quran 2:160. 3. Your God and mine, O man of flesh, is Allah only. In the mesh you cannot catch another fish, a Dagon God, water you wish. For God is one and Allah's best. There is no God among the rest. He's merciful and gracious too, at least to donkeys in their pew. I see created in the sky Quran 2:160. For I see created in the sky and on the earth, as I pass by, in drowsy night and fleeting day, the signs of great Jehovah's way. The ships that fly upon the sea in miracle of symmetry bear not just food and freight to men, but signs that God moves here again. The rain sent down from heaven above is a sign of Jehovah's love upon the earth, when dry and dead to spring up with new life instead. The beasts he scatters round the earth to range in glory of their birth speak to the wise with sacred voice in praise to God as they rejoice. The winds that blow beneath his hand draw out the clouds, a servant band, and as they rush or as they stand, they are signs to each tribe and land. I see the many signs of God writ on the sky and on the sod, and know that whether any will or not, all shall meet judgment's hill. All shall return before God's face to know his mercy and his grace, his power and glory, and see come Allah's everlasting kingdom. Though every faith has at the heart Quran 2:165, though every faith has at the heart the 10 Commandments for a start, and prohibition of the killing, the stealing and adultery willing, all faiths replace the one alone to be worshipped upon the throne of heart and land with priest or worse. A prophet false or true to curse. Men will worship men who have not authority for such a plot, but God is jealous of the way men worship each other in sway. He will not accept those who feel their favorite gurus dressed to heal are better worthy to be called upon in prayer than God installed. When great Jehovah stands to judge the world for every sin and smudge, then all shall know and all regret the many gods everywhere met. Their gurus will shed themselves of their followers and of their love. Then shall the followers take flight and beg to be taken in light. But God who reigns among men here, though silent and slow to appear, has given every one the chance to join the better cosmic dance. The evil one may give command to eat the noxious in the land, and offer pork and rabbit meat, and other shameful things to eat. So many take his hand in grant, and pledge their lives for his pay scant. But all who do will come to find regret among the deaf and blind. Let there be one love in my heart, one God alone, and for my part, as I turn from the great and fair to find Jehovah's secret share, I enter not the synagogue, the church or mosque, where, like a frog, the din of rock rises to mate with worship of Satan's estate. Instead, I seek the Mahdi's way, who shows the humble day by day to turn to God alone in prayer and climb upon the heavenly stair. Men hear the call then to obey Quran 2:160. 6 men hear the call then to obey the truth, revealed in humble ray to prophets and divine guides, hear and fail to listen and to fear. They're certain that the fond descent of man and woman will prevent justice divine. They only need to follow in the way of greed. This is a foolish way indeed, since their ancestors without creed or knowledge are lost in the mist of time and space and in death's tryst. They are like those who hear the cry of a lone goat, heard passing by, like deaf and dumb. They're driven past the glories of the divine caste. No wisdom touches humankind, but all are devoid all are blind. They eat the carrion without the need of hunger, without doubt. They drink the blood of swine and live to brag of what they take and give. They eat the offerings made to gods of gold and oil with eager prods. Though humankind is guilty far above the distance to a star, Allah is merciful and great in grace, and in forgiveness rate. He gives the book, and men take still the nourishment of fat and pill, and swallow only fires that kill, and that they do with eager will. On resurrection day their Lord, whom they worshipped not nor adored, will not call them to paradise, but leave them to their fire and ice. All faiths and all faiths' followers go down to grief as it occurs, because God sent to them the book, and they defied it and mistook. They used the book only to find cause for dispute among the wind, and so in hell itself they just dispute theology and dust. It is not righteousness to find insights in east or western mind, in sect far or near, faith resigned, inventing wisdom of the blind. But righteousness is to believe Allah Jehovah for reprieve from the last day, in angels too, in the book, and in prophets' crew. But righteousness is to give alms for love of God and kin in calms of orphan, and the needy and the homeless wandering on the land. It is to give to those who beg, to ransom the slave on last leg, to pray persistently, in pain be firm and patient, without gain. Such are the folk of truth, and they fear only Allah in the way. May I be of those who see grace and come before His throne in place. The people that fall into hell, Quran 2:160. 7. The people that fall into hell will search and beg to have a spell, to change their chances and repent of what they did not to relent. But that is all that they can do, only regret their place in view. But donkeys are not filled in time with regret for committing crime. People should eat upon the earth, Quran 2:160. 8 people should eat upon the earth only the lawful food of worth, and not take pork upon the plate, nor other filthy things caught late. The world is filled with lovely things to eat in meadows, and where sings the lark on rising toward the sky. Eat sweet grass, and don't be shy. The enemy of ass and men, Quran 2:169. The enemy of ass and men commands the evil thing again, and says to proclaim about God what is not true beneath his rod. He whispers in the human ear that it is all right without fear to eat the refuse on the ground. God does not care to give around. Though donkeys have far larger ears and bigger appetites arrears, they never follow the advice of Satan, but obey God nice. But human beings, by contrast, eat the forbidden from the past. Their first sin was forbidden fruit, and they still sin from tooth to root. When prophets tell human Raf Quran 2:170, when prophets tell human Raf to follow Allah and not laugh, they claim tradition is their guide and what their ancestors might hide. If you point out ancestors had less sense than any modern cad, they still think they are doing right to wander in a senseless night. Though every jackass on the earth has ancestors of little worth, since they're all jackasses themselves, jackasses don't sit on their shelves relying on their fathers' days. Instead, they give Allah the praise in every burden brought inside. A jackass brays to God in pride. All men are goat. Herds in this place, Quran 2:170. 1. All men are goat. Herds in this place with none to talk to face, but only shout and listen to the echoes that range round their view. And yet a goat. Herd is the best the human race from east to west produces among men, and he does evil with less frequency. A donkey, by contrast, takes ear and listens to God's word in fear that rises from both wood and stream. He's more righteous than it would seem. Allah commands men everywhere, Quran 2:170. 2. Allah commands men everywhere to gratefulness for what they share of nourishment with bird and beast, and to say grace at meals at least. It used to be that many did, although the practice may be hid, and modern Christians then hold hands instead of hoof without commands. Better to hold hands than to fold, which is in Scripture a sign bold of laziness, not righteousness. But what else could a donkey guess? God's forbidden carcass dropped dead. Quran 2, 170. 3. God's forbidden carcass dropped dead, which is for those beasts with such fed, and blood wherein is soul and life, and pork eaten with fork and knife. God's forbidden things over which is confessed idols' names in pitch. But if you are dying without eats, you can eat anything like treats, and not incur the guilt that folk around the world get at a stroke, with what filth they fill up their paunch sitting in their luxury launch. Sweet Christians who conceal the fact. Quran 2, 174. 176 sweet Christians who conceal the fact the Bible tells them how to act, and what to eat and what to not, have bought themselves a paltry plot. They think they are gourmets when they indulge in eating what's not hay, but they are swallowing hellfire, and in it they will soon expire. They're bold before the creeping flame, and riotous as though no blame attached to them for what they do, ignoring Allah in their brew. Allah sent down the book, but they cause such divisions in the way they read it and interpret it to grant them food of what's not fit. No donkey shall be condemned when men are thrown in hell once again. For donkeys day to day remain to eat their lawful food and gain. There are a few things in the law. Quran 2, 177. 178. There are a few things in the law of Moses that stick in the craw and are changed in the Quran when God spoke once more on earth to men. The Bible says not to look on the murderer with pity drawn, but slay him for the thing he's done and cleanse the earth under the sun. The Quran, by contrast, allows a recompense where money bows. Such differences in the text are few to bother the perplexed. I have seen people grasp at straws, inventing such tenuous flaws to prove the Quran's a false book, but never take a single look at the true differences clear. No one has ever in my ear said that the Quran's evil for providing alternate in store for the death penalty. Not one. Hypocrisy under the sun marks all who engage in the battle between the books. Arguments rattle. I love the grace of God I see increased in the Quran to be a flood of mercy on the earth for every man and woman's worth. I thank God that progression in the book that condemns human sin also increases grace beyond the throne and scepter and the frond. Though capital punishment stands, the book of grace also demands that mercy be extended if the human neck is not too stiff. I praise God for the revelation of Bible and Quran in ration, and as I seek and find a store of difference upon the shore, I praise God that His grace is sure, His mercy abounds and is pure. Let man recoil or come to bow before God's mercy anyhow. An eye for eye, a tooth for tooth. Quran 2, 179. An eye for eye, a tooth for tooth, a slave for slave, and so forsooth a man for man, and woman too in payment for a murder due. The purpose was to save a life in the midst of the human strife. But even God above cannot, it seems, curb human hatred's plot. That's why no doubt God's turned away from all humankind in dismay, and made of donkeys his new folk of Israel, as he once spoke. The human race bears on its back. Quran 2, 180. 182. The human race bears on its back the weight of wealth. There is no lack, all hoarded in both bank and vault, in farm and field, and to a fault. A man fears death, because his wealth may fall into some hands of stealth, and so he makes a testament to benefit his regiment. Wealth opens up grand vistas, where enormous wrongs of how to share and jealousies awake, because of stone and dirt beneath men's claws. A donkey has no property beneath the sun beside the sea, and dies intestate without will, and no one fights about the kill. That is another reason why God favors donkeys on the sly, and sends to hell men and their dames to burn with stones and feed their flames. In Jeremiah's day the king Quran 2 183, 180. 5 In Jeremiah's day the king proclaimed the month of the fasting in the 9th month for 30 days, and that's become of righteous ways. The Torah was sent down that time, and Jesus received sense and rhyme. The Holy Quran was revealed in Ramadan, and the word sealed. So fasting is enjoined on those at home if weakness not dispose. The traveller too must make the days up later, and with alms in praise. The indisposed too must in time of later daylight fast in mime, and lay out alms then to atone for passing of the month alone. But that is only if the share of wealth in hand can such things bear. But if he or she can give more, that's better for the righteous store. The indisposed are those who are ill, and those too young task to fulfill as well as aged folk in line, the pregnant and nursing benign. Like every practice of faith known, the purpose of fasting alone is to enhance the Decalogue, to keep it well in cloud and fog. It is no wonder that God gave the fasting to men to behave. It's not effective, though. I see, they're just as bad as they can be. A donkey's good without the fast, but humankind always comes last in fortitude and patience and obedience upon the land. But many use practice to void the duty divine, while employed in circumventing divine law to satisfy the lust of claw. But God would make the easy way, so that when men might come to pray, they would be grateful for the peace, and praise him for their sins' release. That's why the Quran came to guide men and women in what to bide, and when to fast, when to refrain, when to give alms, when to take gain. Those who do less, those who do more, are not the blessed upon the shore of paradise, but go to hell of wickedness in flight mel. May every one of the elect, who love and fear God and select the way of guidance, instead of their own decisions hand in glove, return to God one day in grace and mercy, to stand by his face in praise and love and gratitude and bowing, as they have been cued. Until that day of glory shone, I shall bow here before his throne, in nights of power and glory, till the vision's end and sight fulfill. The human heart and tongue may ask Quran 2 186. 187. The human heart and tongue may ask where God is and what is his task. For he remains unseen unless he appears to the ones who guess. But he is close to every man and woman in his sacred plan. He rushes at the call of prayer to answer humans everywhere. So he asks thus of humankind, insightful as well as of blind. As once of Adam long ago, Adam, where are you to and fro? As God is quick to hear our prayer, so he expects men everywhere to be as quick to hear his voice and obey him as they rejoice. Just as God commanded to fast in daylight till Ramadan last, he also commands in the night to seek both food and seek delight. Both are commands divine on wing, the humble prayer, the song to sing, the fast and tears, the laugh of joy, both night and day the law employ. Both fast and eating God ordained, both continence, pleasure unfeigned, are equally command of God for men to follow on the sod. The black thread and the white appear, the days return, but both are dear. In continence and fasting then men go back to the mosques again. The limits set by God are known, clear from the word sent from the throne, that man may learn of self-restraint, and women live too without taint. The promise is as earth shall last, in summer and winter the fast, the planting and harvest, the heat and cold each year always repeat. The cycle of human life too is bound in fasting, and the cue to eat and enjoy every night until we come back to God's sight. From birth to death, in daily round the voice of God is always found, though still and small, to show the way that all must tread in glory's sway. God warns mankind not to fulfill Quran 2. 188. God warns mankind not to fulfill his lusts and waste his wealth and bill his baiting of judges with gold that could for his children be sold. A donkey never wastes his wealth but minds her foal and his foal's health. Let humans everywhere take care to follow donkeys if they dare. New moons show times of pilgrimage. Quran 2, 180. 9 new moons show times of pilgrimage as though written upon a page. There is no more importance than to give a sign of when you can go to the house of God or fast. Here is nothing magic in the blast of moonlight. Even donkeys know the moon may come, the moon may go. A donkey knows each house and home, the back door and the front from comb. So people should not hide the way they enter every house each day. Those who fight in the way of God. Quran 2, 190. 190. 3. Those who fight in the way of God against aggressors on the sod must not transgress the limit set by God in what they do and get. Only aggressors may be slain, which comes down to a word most plain, that self-defense only may be the action of the faithful free. God does not love those who transgress, but only those whose sins confess, and live each day in righteousness, and show it in the way they dress. But those who've turned you from your land and chased you from your homes in band, slay them wherever they are found, for they have desecrated ground. Oppression's face is worse than war, and disarray than battle's gore. For God has given every folk its own place to live where he spoke. One must not fight on sacred ground of the holy house where God's found, but even there, if men rebel, one should strike them down and so quell. Such is the punishment that's right on those who suppress faith in sight. May God save us from storm and fear of the invader coming here, and may the donkey live in peace under a sky where hatreds cease and straw and hay suffice to keep a place to eat and place to sleep. There are also the months when no. Quran 2, 194. There are also the months when no warfare may be done, even slow. It is a practice that goes back to ancient times, and without slack. Men in past age, like men today, think men must war, and that for pay, as though it were ingrained in heart. Although their history shows the chart that some societies have lain without a violence in stain for centuries on centuries, all in a peaceful sort of breeze, that shows that humankind could be as fine as donkeys and as free, and that the choice lies with the breed that wars rather than go to seed. So Allah gives permission here for men's retaliations leer, even in the months of peacetime, remembering the human crime. Spend wealth, God says in cause of God. Quran 2, 190. 5. Spend wealth, God says, in cause of God, and not in destruction and rod, and do good, for God loves the good that men do and the good they should. This is a prohibition made by God for making weapons laid. Those who make weapons thus obey not the Quran's sway. The violent may scoff and say they are the best Muslims who pray. But I, a donkey and an ass, say that they lie through teeth and grass. The pilgrimage to house of God. Quran 2, 196. 200. The pilgrimage to house of God is to be done, but not in fraud, but spending one's wealth for the good. Always be doing what one should. When the visit is done at last, then offering is due at the cast. Unless one is too poor for it, then fasting is proper and fit. Because I am an ass, I may continue on to eat my hay. Forbidden me is only meat, and every kind of sour and sweet. 10 days in all is fasting made, after the visit in parade, 3 days in pilgrimage, and then a week more at home come again. But that is for those who do not live in the sacred town and spot. I wept to see Mecca remain behind me as I left its plain. The best provision for the trip is good behavior, not to slip into a quarrel or a fight, but stay in contemplation's light. Seeking the bounty of my Lord, I come from Arafat restored and circumambulate again the Kaaba with some faithful men. With shaven head I celebrate the praises of my Lord in state, and beg the bounties of this life as well as future, without strife. Those who seek only this world's fun will find neither in place when done, but those who seek their health both here and in the day that shall appear to glorify their Lord will find his blessing both before, behind. Each is given what he has earned, and each the scroll of what he learned. The days appointed I will bless, and linger on as I confess the glory of my God and show his praises there before I go. Some speak in dazzling speech to give witness of their Lord as they live, and yet are quarrelsome among his enemies both old and young. Let me be rather of those true who give their lives in their God's view for glory to his name alone, and bow sincerely at his throne. Though donkeys may or may not come, Quran 2, 190. 6. Though donkeys may or may not come along with men to bray or hum, the people must complete the trip of pilgrimage, or Umrah's grip in worship of Allah, above as a sign of their faith and love. But if they cannot do the thing, then send a sacrifice offering. But then they must not shave their head before the offering comes instead. And if a man has sore skin on his scalp, so he must shave upon, then he should compensate by fast, or feeding of the poor at last. And after that, when all is right, let him continue with his might. He must make an offering, or then fast 3 days during the Hajj, when he shall fast 7 days more on returning to his hearth with spawn. That makes 10 days in all for those who do not live in Mecca's close. The fear of God may then repose on men's hearts for what humans chose. They are indeed a violent race, and that's why they're called and sent to Mecca with expense, so they will spend some time out of the fray. A donkey with a peaceful heart and hoof fulfills the peaceful part in his own field and in his stall, not fighting anyone at all. If anybody goes away, Quran 2, 197, if anybody goes away on Hajj for peace and time to pray, let him take with him trinity of things to keep by God's decree, avoidance of obscenity and wickedness, and fighting spree. God knows the good that men may do. It's easy since there are so few. Remember then to take a lunch along and eat of it a bunch. The best provision for a trip is good behavior and worship. There are 2 things on pilgrimage, Quran 2, 198. There are 2 things on pilgrimage in which donkeys and men of age are both in agreement and sage, when both are let out of their cage. They are to seek God's bounty there, the lovely things that all may share in bounty from God's hand and grace, the things to eat in every place, and then to give God every praise from Arafat, back to the ways of Makkah's monument, to find that God in everything is kind. There is one thing more to make 3, Quran 2, 199. There is one thing more to make 3, to pace along the way quickly. To say the truth, though, men enjoy their speed on asses they employ. A donkey would prefer to go along with a gait sure and slow, in that he fails to come up to the measure of Trinity new. There are 2 kinds of men below Quran 2, 200. 202. There are 2 kinds of men below, who raise a voice and make a show. The one asks God for bounty's rate, and enjoys what is on his plate for time and for his pleasure's room, as long as he lives till his doom upon the wicked world and sod, with hardly a thought or a nod for what comes after his own death. The other asks for life and breath to live upon the earthly way, and provision for coming day, when he shall be raised flesh and bone to stand before the divine throne. A donkey quietly awaits his resurrection and its dates. To those who pray not to go in the fire of punishment for sin, God grants the reward of their life lived without wickedness and strife. 2 out of 3 is good enough, Quran 2. 203, 2 out of 3 is good enough in virtues and in days when rough. Some leave the city sooner than the donkeys of another man. This is the heart of the Quran, Quran 2, 204, 206. This is the heart of the Quran for those today and for their spawn. It warns about the kind of man that lives and breeds without a plan. His rhetoric is bold and bright. He speaks of economy, right? His politics are dazzling too, and what he says seems oh so true. He even calls to witness God, pretending a mandate in prod. His voice shakes with emotion too, as he speaks of the God who's true. He is a president of state, a secretary not come late, a general at the impasse. He's anything, but not an ass. As soon as he goes off the air and turns his back against God's care, he turns to grief and plunder where the earth is barren for his share. His aim is to bring misery on land after land of the free, destroying crops and cattle too. He's violent and all his crew, though he speaks of the peace process and containing the war, I guess. He is a hypocrite, but still he does not realize his fill, though one may tell him to fear God and stop the violence on sod. He will not listen, but will hate the one who calls for peaceful rate. For others hell may burn with stone, but for him God's prepared alone what he lusts for, petroleum where he can burn and hum and hum. There is by contrast a man who, Quran 2, 207. There is by contrast a man who gives his life to live for the true. He does all he does in the view of giving pleasure to God too. God loves the man who does such things, and will reward him with the springs of paradise, where donkeys stay to beautify the grounds that way. Enter submission to your Lord, Quran 2, 208. Enter submission to your Lord, and humbly follow the adored, instead of following the track of Satan. Turn toward him your back, because the evil one's a foe implacable where you may go. So enter submission to God and live in peace beneath his rod. For some, when it's said to fear God, Quran 2, 209. 210, for some, when it's said to fear God, it seems a call to crime and fraud. But others live to please him here in love and awe and trembling fear. But God is full of grace and kind, and will not leave any behind who enter peace with all their heart, and flee from every wicked part. Those who backslide after clear signs have come to them in their confines must surely know that God is wise and will still help them in their tries. So do not put off faith and hope, obedience in worldly scope, until God comes with clouds above, and angels in his wrath and love. The promise is, he shall return with clouds of angels, where skies burn as seen by Daniel, with the eye of vision under Babel's sky. Ask well the folk of Israel how many miracles in spell they have experienced to know that God is faithful on the go. Those who are given manna's treat, and yet find other things to eat, the swill of swine and bone of dog, are left to wander in the fog. The worldly life allures the men who have rejected faith again, and they scoff at those who believe. May God hold them too in reprieve. But on the day that bodies rise up from the grave under the skies, the faithful will be set in state, and have the best things on their plate. For God gives all abundantly of best provisions, till they see he is without bound, without measure, the source of every good and treasure. If humankind lives on the earth, Quran 2, 211. If humankind lives on the earth, all share in both the rain and dearth, and all are of one body made, one blood and flesh here on parade. Sectarian views of the real are an illusion that some feel behind the differences slight all humankind is of one right. God sent his book of guidance in the heart of each to know no sin, in glory of the stars above, in earth beneath in divine love. God sent his book of truth to hear on Sinai rumbling, where appear the lightning flash of light and word. And every listening heart was stirred. By grace divine God leads each one into the truth of having won beyond the veils a vision caught of beauty in the worlds he wrought. But from the start of humankind none has been ever left behind to enter in gardens of bliss without the pain that none can miss. For every soul that enters in and leaves behind her load of sin must enter through the gate of pain, to find at last the heavenly gain. Though song and laughter fill the air and celebrations everywhere, there is no heart but knows the care and sword of Mary for its share. One's lot on earth's adversity, to view and touch calamity. But after that the river sent from tree of life in praises lent. Some ask what they should give in alms, as though goods measured out with qualms. The answer is to give the good till pocket hurts and heart is wood. The struggle of life in each heart and in each hand is human part, and though none find a pleasure there, it is divinely given share. It's possible to love the wrong and hate the beauty of a song for a time while the point is sharp, until the gun's exchanged for harp. The tinsel and confetti that make life Quran 2:112, the tinsel and confetti that make life attractive to the husband and the wife, are swept up in the morning and the day of resurrection under Allah's sway. Those who grasped emptiness instead of real on that day will be trodden under heel, and those who ridiculed the men of faith will find their own supplies to be a wraith. The resurrection of the body finds either the cord of punishment that binds in fire, or else the rivers that still flow under the gardens where their delights grow. When humankind formed one people and folk, Quran 2:113, when humankind formed one people and folk, Allah sent messengers to every bloke with promises and warnings and a book in truth for everyone who would just look. The book had taught them to distinguish right from wrong, but they argued about its sight. And so the Quran too was sent to be a sign, to give all people clarity. But nothing would avail. The people strove to make another faith under the grove, and showed their selfish stubbornness to all who still inhabit field, woodland, and stall. A donkey knows what guidance is, and goes along the straight path and past garden rows. But humankind must wander from the way, pretending freedom comes in losing hay. Some people think they'll slip into the fair Quran 2:114. Some people think they'll slip into the fair garden of paradise without a care. Like gentle donkeys led back to the stall after an outing with children and all. But those who came before sank at the load of sorrow and of pain as well as goad, and were so sad that even prophets cried and wonder where the help of God might hide. The help of God is always near the ass that patiently remains in the first class, not striking out for freedom, or the vain wisdom that humankind seeks in the rain. The people ask how much they ought to give. Quran 2:115. The people ask how much they ought to give in charity wherever they might live. They do so to give as little as can. That is the view of every sort of man. Whatever one gives to the orphan and the widow and the poor and wandering band of homeless travelers is a good remand. God loves such giving with a loving hand. The struggle is prescribed for humankind. Quran 2:216. The struggle is prescribed for humankind by God himself, despite the way they mind. Some things that taste bad, like the bitter root, are really good for people and still suit. The months prohibited are known. Quran 2:217. The months prohibited are known in warfare of the ancients, shown already in the Torah times, when kings went out committing crimes. The season of warfare and battle is a tradition like the cattle, a stable thing that's handed down in ancient Near East with a frown. But the Holy Koran repeats that in those times let not retreats prevent one from defending home and Kaaba from robbers that roam. For life's always a struggle here, and fraught with troubles and with fear. But those with faith who persevere will find divine reward is near. Those who have been cast from their homes to wander where the wolfling roams, who struggle in the path of God, will find God's pleasure on the sod. They live in hope of mercy too, remembering him in all they do. For God is he who forgives best, merciful above all the rest. They ask of wine and gambling games, two things that enter into shames. Tell them that in them tea here is great sin, more than their benefit in bin. They ask how much they ought to give to widow and orphan to live. But alms are all that men may own above what they eat and wear shown. For everything belongs to God, the ripe as well as pea in pod. And those who eat only at the divine board where angels sat. So God makes clear his signs to all in daily round, and in the thrall of hope and greed and love and need. Reward is buried in the seed. All things must struggle for their time. The sun is burning hot in clime. The moon sheds light diminishing, and then again grows to take wing. The axe is lifted to the tree and brought down with a thud to free the chips upon the leafy ground, and all the woods ring with the sound. With effort go the passing days, and yet they are all filled with praise to God who made and loved them all. Winter and spring, summer and fall. Those who believed beyond their pain, Quran 2:218. Those who believed beyond their pain and suffering for divine gain, and strove and struggled in the field, will have God's mercy for the yield. I've never seen a donkey yet, Quran 2:219. I've never seen a donkey yet like so many men that I've met, who is plagued by alcohol and the temptation of gambling hand. There may be profit in the drink with potent herbs distilled in link for health and curing. There may be, but greater sin is in the leer. There may be profit with good luck in gambling when the lever's stuck, but still the sin is greater than the profit to fill up the can. Give rather charity to stoke the orphan and the one who's broke. Give what's beyond one's needs, and find that Allah keeps it all in mind. The orphan is the one without. Quran 2:220. The orphan is the one without a mom and dad, and without clout. That's why care should be taken to provide them with their share and due. The noble Quran shows the way. Quran 2:220. 1. The noble Quran shows the way of love and marriage in its day. Do not wed any maid or man to follow up a greedy plan. Do not wed in the hope of gold, in hope of wealth. Riches untold. Do not wed in the glow of power, to raise your status for an hour. Do not wed for the handsome face, the stature, or the strength or grace, but wed the true and honest man or maid, the best one that you can. Its virtue makes the better wife, its beauty of the soul in strife. It's better far to wed a slave than wed a king who is a knave. It's better to take one whose faith is in the true God and not wraith, one whose prayers are made to the ground, to God of Abram only found. It's better to take one who fasts and gives alms while her small store lasts, than to take one who celebrates her greed with dancing and songs rates. Let your spouse be among the men who celebrate God's praise again, rather than of the painted crowd who come to blaspheme him aloud. The spouse bound in simplicity of faith and love is one set free from slavery, though he may be bought and sold upon the market plot. To see the way marriage is done among the people who for fun pretend to have faith in Koran and in the prophet of its dawn, one would not think the word went out in signs of which there is no doubt that faith is better far than gold, and virtue finer than what's sold. for dowries seem the greater. Deal, and wealth down to the polished heel calls those who wed to take the vow, at least among the people now. I pray that I may be among the spouses who with better tongue confess one Lord, and take one spouse to worship, and live in a house where virtue's held in more esteem than gold and wealth and social dream, where kindness has become the rule, and greed cast out with every fool. Al-Baqarah goes on to state, Quran 2:220. Al-Baqarah goes on to state that women, when they menstruate, should be left alone by their men until they're purified again. Then men may come to them as they are pleased to do in every way, in every place, and every time, as long as it is not a crime. But they should always do before they touch the wife some act or chore of goodness, and during the time they go into them in their prime, they should remember that God takes them into judgment for the sakes of how they treat their wives, and fear God in the things they do and steer. I know that menstruation's not a subject popular in plot of art and poetry today, but since I am writing in the sway of the Quran and what is writ, I must admit that it is fit to contemplate as I seek God and love and light and truth in pod. All things are fair that God had made upon the earth, and then he stayed to call them very good indeed. All things are good must be my creed. All things are good as they come from creating hand and voice not dumb, to decorate a world in time, sometimes in woe, sometimes in crime. I started out in Ramadan to write a hymn each day upon the morning feast, and so to take one on each section read in state. But here I find the feast must end, and I am just about to lend the second chapter, and recite its plumes of glory and of light. May God give me the time and strength to keep on reading then, at length, as the world turns back to its greed and feasting day and night in need. May God give me the grace to write tomorrow too, as I recite the further words of the book, sweet to tongue and ear till it's complete. Like donkeys, men too have their wives, Quran 2:220. 3 like donkeys, men too have their wives, which they too plough near all their lives. It is a pleasant thing for all, at least when each one hears the call. Before such ploughing, a man should remember his wife and do good to her, to please both her and God. Otherwise she'll not give the nod. A donkey does not mount for pain like some men do, who are so vain they do not think how others feel. Let them slip on banana peel, though Jesus says don't swear at all, Quran 2:220. 4:220. 6 though Jesus says don't swear at all. The Quran is more on the ball to give details of what men do and how they ought to mind their brew. Don't use the name of God to swear not to do things both right and fair, and then in that hypocrisy use God's name as pretext as free. To swear not to do a good thing, to help the poor or broken wing, is not a valid pretext for failure to do good at one's door. For God hears and knows all that's said, and God will judge the heart instead of what the tongue, in foolish rate, tries to hide of heart's greed and hate. God does not judge for thoughtless word, nor for the accident occurred, but for the heart's intention and what wicked hearts come to command. If a man swears that he'll divorce his wife, then he must wait the course of 4 months. Then if he still feels the need, then let him take to heels. But let no angry moment take the precedence of reason's stake, but over time make sure the will to stay together's left the hill. No oath can override the time to take to consider the crime of jilting one that you have wed, and even taken her to bed. The Quran takes note of what men do in dishonesty again, or in their anger, and pretend they merely keep their word to men. No wonder Jesus in disgust says not to swear, but only trust as far as able, yes and no. The heart is wicked and it's slow. Give me, Jehovah, patience here, not to take up your name to shear the lamb along with sheep and goat, but keep oaths from my tongue and coat. Let me do what I can, and say no name, or promise past the day. For who knows when I'll come to die, and leave my promises to lie. Let God alone swear what he'll do, and what he'll give in grace in view. Let God have mercy on all men, for mercy's his province again. No mercy falls from human hand, said David when he chose command of divine judgment. He was right. Only God has mercy in sight. Let me, O God, follow the way of mercy then from day to day, and so walk into paradise where hopefully I shall be nice. The laws of divorce are so sad, Quran 2, 220, 7, 220. 9. The laws of divorce are so sad, I cannot help but think them bad, except that human hearts are tough, and always treat each other rough. Christ pointed to the very start as the ideal to impart. A man should stick fast with his wife, and keep each other safe for life. But Moses promised that a writ of divorce was binding and fit. The sweet Christian defies the law by saying divorce can, by claw, take place only when one has done adultery upon his bun. The law does not provide divorce, but death for adultery, of course. If here is no death sentence to make, then why not just forgive with cake? Folk think the law's in function of the jealousy of some hurt love, but it in fact preserves the right of children to know dads by sight. The pain human relation draws is waste of effort and of straws. But the Quran once more tries to make sense of what humans may do, a futile effort, in my view, for all the jealous, raving crew. So when a woman is divorced, she ought not to marry as forced, but wait 3 months just to be sure she is not pregnant without cure. After that she may marry then any of her choice among men. A woman should not hide the fact that she is pregnant after act. Let women have equal rights with a man, though a man caught in myth has an advantage in the way. Still for each child he ought to pay. If in those 3 months they decide to reconcile, let them abide. Otherwise, let them both go free to marry and to be happy. Divorce and reconciling may be done twice. After that the fray be ended, and so let them stay together, or take kindness way and keep apart, and never come together again like some bum. In that case men must not take back the gifts they gave her when on track. But she may of her own sweet choice give back a thing or two, with voice not to retain a thing of his. Not to depart limits, that is. Folks ought to relax for a while, since life is short. The more we smile, the better for both man and maid. Rather than found, troubles are made. It is surprising, though, I see how the Koran's ready to be a book of logic and good sense, since those who claim to give some pence to follow it do not retain its tolerance for equal gain, except a few of noble spirit. Good God, keep me too in or near it. Sweet Christians make out the Quran to be Quran too. 230 sweet Christians make out the Quran to be a book satanic to furthest degree, and better Muslims pretend that the book called Bible is corrupted by the crook. Each claims the other is far from belief. And yet, as I read both once come to grief, I find them quite identical in all except a few details their authors scrawl. Here is such a detail in opposite that could be chosen well among the fit. The Torah gives instruction not to take back former wife after new marriage wake. If a wife is divorced and then she goes and marries someone else who also throws her out on ear, the first man that she chose may not marry her once more when she crows. That's Moses. But Muhammad of renown looks on that law with something of a frown, and says the very opposite, to quote Allah above the lewd ones that he smote. The Quran says a man who leaves his wife may never take her back, not on his life, unless she's consummated marriage well with someone else and bedded him a spell. I am confused as what I ought to do. One says one thing, the other, to be true, says quite the opposite. No help I find among the faithful clerics and the blind. My Alevi friends tell me just to take one wife and do not divorce in the wake. and then the thing will not come up at all before I meet the judgment and its call. But that is not a realistic thing. T here is always someone who is on the wing and anguished by the care of human heart. There has to be a law to take her part. Perhaps the both are right when they're combined. They give two ways to choose from when resigned. Go this way or go that. The God of grace looks down on humankind with loving face. It is a weakness of my heart or strength that I would follow love at any length and bow to God above, and love below, and reap the harvest of what seed I sow. Unlike a donkey, men need to divorce. Quran 2:230. One, unlike jackasses, men need to divorce because they lead their lives governed by force. They send a wife away and take her back, sometimes in equity, sometimes in lack. Unlike a donkey, men seeking to take advantage of a woman like a rake are all too common. But they do not know they injure their own soul the way they go. God's revelations to such men are just a joke, and they throw God's book in the dust. Let them be wise and fear God, who knows best what they do and neglect to do the rest. It seems it was a mercy in the time. Quran 2:230. 2. It seems it was a mercy in the time of sweet Muhammad to abridge the crime of going back to marry a man who had been a husband before the one knew. The Torah does forbid the marriage of a man and woman, even if for love, if the woman married another man, and then returned to the first husband's span. The mercy that broadened the way of life in the Islamic law that came of strife became a requisite in punishment, that one must marry others that are sent before one can return to the first man. It's scandalous how men behave and plan. A donkey's married life is better far, more moral, and reaches a higher bar. The mother shall breastfeed her dears. Quran 2:230. 3. The mother shall breastfeed her dears and nourish them at least 2 years. Sounds like to keep a woman down, at least at home, in the same town. But the Quran goes on to say a father for the food must pay and equally share in the task, and expense feeding them may ask. He can pay the mom for her work in breastfeeding, but if she shirk, he can then pay a wet nurse too, but only wean when both are through. The dad may not take any way deciding without the mom's say. The Quran, more than any book, is an elite woman's outlook. That must be why, when faiths are reared, one must not take literal feared, but have some men to change a bit the words and laws to make them fit the male desires. And so we find traditions and schools here to blind to justice and equality that the Quran would make us free. A Baptist outlook on Quran, of course, must be wrong when it's drawn. To say one calls it as one sees the book to read rather than please. A secular view's just as bad for ignoring context it had. No justice or faith in this world is found in reading things unfurled. Those things are just found in the skin of the experience we're in, the vision of hand on the plough, the day fight anyhow. But may God bless in any case the lifting of life without mace that he or Gabriel brought to Muhammad in that cave in view.
If one must guard, especially Quran 2:238-239, if one must guard especially the middle prayer and faithfully, that means the other prayers are not quite so important in their slot. But how to count the middle prayer is a point disagreed on, where interpreters of divine law wrangle and put in a smart paw. Some start the count at morning light and find the middle prayer in sight, only in the fair afternoon the squeezed tight prayer to give a boon. But that is wrong by all accounts, since the day starts as evening mounts, so the first prayer of every day is Maghrib caught in evening's sway. That makes the dawn prayer middle one before the rising of the sun. If one prays it with special care, the others fall in anywhere. So many take each gesture made and every syllable's parade, as to be judged on Judgment Day, and yet the Quran has its way. If you are afraid then to pray in the appointed prophet's way, you can pray as you walk or ride or even sit by the roadside. Those who do so at prescribed time think they must make up as a crime the prayers once spoken in the heart and unseen by all human art. But the Quran accepts the prayer of fear as it's done anywhere. I may indeed bow to the earth or on a carpet of some worth, but I do not neglect the word of prayer whenever my heart's stirred. I pray as I walk by the road, I pray as I carry a load, I pray with or without ablution of water taking sand solution. I pray by day, I pray by night, I pray each moment of my fright, for fear is always in my line, fear punctuates my days to shine upon my every deed and thought, to give God only glory wrought. I fear to enter into church, the synagogue leaves me in lurch, and every temple of each creed deters my seeking and my need. The mosque, though beautiful to see, is often now a trap for me. I pray beneath the fir and pine, the birches whisper of divine. My congregation round me set is bird and beast that I have met, or that's invisible to eye, still range beneath a prayerful sky. All friends around me praise the name of great Jehovah and his fame, whether by choice and conscious mind, or merely by each breath resigned. Each heart and wing and lung that beat with life glories without retreat, the sovereign of the worlds on high, the hope of earth beneath the sky. The night may close the eye and tongue, unless sleep-talking of hearts young break in upon the glory ride, but the dawn prayer as the stars hide comes to each creature that awakes to morning and without mistakes recites the middle prayer in glee that life continues in day's spree. The highway near my house in din would try to drown their prayer with sin, but tiny angels in the trees break out in voice loud in degrees to shout the twitter above noise the traffic makes, and so enjoys without a clock, without the mat, without the bowing where they're at, engage in fearful prayer to find that nature's eye is never blind, but takes each whistled note upon an altar to her God at dawn. A man who dies should first bequeath Qur'an 2:240 to 242. A man who dies should first bequeath to his coming widow a wreath of money to support her for a year, a place to live, what's more. She may choose or not to live there, but she should have maintenance fare. So many rumours go around of what the Qur'an says in sound. One only needs to read a bit to find out what it means is fit. No wonder, though, that people are ignorant of its word and star. Confusion rises from the way those who claim to live in its sway attempt to circumvent its laws and go on living without pause. I pray that I may not offend the striving soul by what I spend and what I save as I go round the land in praise of what I've found. Let love and justice here abound, and heap up wealth in mound on mound for every hungry widow and for every orphan in the land. The signs of God and verses sent are clear to bird and beast as sent. It's human beings who are undone and scratch their head and load a gun. The noble Quran gives command. Quran 2:243 to 244. The noble Quran gives command to fight and fight on every hand, for Allah hears and knows all things that happen on foot and on wings. The fight is for those who are made refugees and from homes unpaid, forced out and having left their all, are without means on earthly ball. Fight to give money to the poor, fight to give shelter safe and sure to those without a home or tent. Fight to give the widow her rent. Fight in the way of God as long as earth contains anything wrong. Fight to return the refugee back to his home and property. But let no man take the command as an excuse for hurtful hand, for violence in every land, for guns and bombs and fateful stand. The context of command to fight, it is a thing now come to light, is spreading of the situation of refugees in every nation. I look about the world today and see the root of every fray contains this common scourge in place, the refugee before God's face. Beware the prayer of refugee who calls to Allah for mercy. The prayer may well be heard some day, and God destroy the wicked way, until God intervene with might and miracle to end the plight of those set out of home and gate. Our duty is to fight a rate, defeat those who take field and share of property from owner's care, defeat those who make widows bear, destroying orphans as they dare. Defeat with force and meet the pale of anger and the weapon's flail. Defeat with wealth and see the tide turn to make refugee abide. Defeat with love and more respect and see wickedness and neglect melt in the glow of providence and fail before light of good sense. Fight, fight upon the soil and find establishment of good and kind, and hope and pray God intervene to help the helpless on the scene. The banks invest in loans in hope, Quran 2:245. The banks invest in loans in hope of making a profit in scope and multiplying the first share of funds invested and with care. But loans that people make to God are returned multiplied on sod and multiplied again as great. As anything in banking rate, the banks depend on war as well to multiply wealth for a spell, and yet the critic of Islam cries aloud and cannot be calm for holy war that Salafi would perpetrate and in a spree. But the banks have created more in war industries and in war. The loan to God is firstly made in caring for the widow stayed and for the orphan in his toil. Upon a stranger's land and soil, the loan to God is struggle met, a holy war against the set of ignorance and poverty, a war to set the captive free. That loan in efforts to do good is what all men of goodwill should be perpetrating in the land, in every way, on every hand. It is Jehovah who remains, to give to humankind their gains, to bring wealth to the one and save the poor man from being its slave. My hand is full of money too, although today the plastic brew takes place of gold and silver here, a plastic idol without fear. But as I take fruit of my toil upon a northern sort of soil, I pray my actions, good or weak, be loans to the God whom I seek. After the time of Moses came Quran 2:46. After the time of Moses came the time of judges, men of fame, and Gideon rose up to save the people with 300 brave. Why only 300 men sought to fight the enemy as ought. According to the Quran's word, the fear of man is what occurred. The Bible notes that God was clear. Too many people filled with fear would take away God's glory, seen in victory both quick and keen. So all who feared were sent back home, except 300 under dome of the night sky, and with a flame, a picture and resounding name. I never was, even in youth, a fighter, if I tell the truth. I should have been sent back among the first abandoned as too young. But still I have a fighter's heart, and rage enough to do my part. Injustice fills my soul with fire to follow God through drought and mire. Disgust I cannot, will not quell, but raise a voice against the hell that men create upon the earth, and call for God's law in its dearth. The law is not hundreds of things to mind with guns or even slings, but only 10 upon the wall. On the name of one God I call. If God is one to whom all men must pray and worship once again, then humankind is one also, and not divided to and fro. All face the same beauty and woe, all face the same problems that grow, and so united in one life, all should avoid the mortal strife. respect for life and property, the Sabbath and the family, truth and the holy name of God. These are the only laws by rod. These are the royal 7 in 10. The Decalogue proclaimed to men and women cast from hearth and home into the desert where they roam. The battle between Satan and our great Jehovah in the land still goes on after Gideon long since sleeps in the grave outdrawn. The end is sure, but what remains to ask among the warrior trains is who will join 300 strong to fight against the wicked wrong. 318 in the day that Abraham fought in the fray. 313 may awake soon for the last great battle's stake. Though great injustice always finds the populace in chains and blinds, the vast majority refused to rise up when they were abused. May great Jehovah fill the heart of his own chosen for the part with courage and with power to stand for truth and right in every land. When it comes time to choose a king, Quran 2:247. When it comes time to choose a king from among those of hoof or wing, it turns out always from the chaff. The people disagree by staff with God and want a king of wealth and of good family and stealth, while God is satisfied with one who's strong enough to bear a ton. At the people's request, God spoke in favor of Talut and woke a king called Saul in Bible store and made the man their king on shore. But the folk did not like the choice. According to Quranic voice, although the Bible says the man pleased them since he was tall in span, they thought they were above him in capacity to rule on sin, but God claimed to provide him with great knowledge and not just of myth. It is divine knowledge to take and love above all things in stake, and human to prefer the gold and silver in a casket's hold. So in times past God's view and man's were in conflict with other plans. God loved the true and man the view of wealth in bank account on cue. Only when the computer age fell on humankind in its cage did data and wealth join their hands to bring a new breed on all lands. Two natures now join incarnation of an elite in land and nation, the divine of data and yet the wealth of those who make and get. The godmen who grow rich upon data in thin air on the dawn are now our kings and very gods, much better than the former clods. So Israel and God can agree today and to the last degree on whom and how and what to make the king of data and wealth's stake. I'll name no names, since the two books sacred to humankind by hooks say in the one Saul and the other Talut, as though Saul had a brother. But without naming, as is fair, where anonymity takes share of power beyond the fame of white, I praise God and then say good night. When Saul set out according to Quran 2:249, when Saul set out according to the Quran, he took Gideon's view according to the Bible writ to test the army to see fit. Only those who took in their hand a sip of water in the band were taken into the army of Saul or Gideon on spree. The Midianites of Bible fame, Goliath of Quranic claim. In any case, a tiny force gained victory for God, of course. Some say the texts are incomplete, corrupted or not good to eat, but I say men make their excuse not to obey God's word in use. A donkey does not quibble with the hay, whether a fact or myth, but only eats and lives to bear another burden and with care. A donkey will bray every day, Quran 2:250. A donkey will bray every day, and every time he goes the way of danger, asking for God's help to him and also to his whelp. But men go out against a world of enemies with flag unfurled, forgetting mostly to ask aid of Allah before getting paid. The Bible makes a great parade, Quran 2:251. The Bible makes a great parade of how Israel was God's folk made, and how Goliath was a threat to God's chosen people, you bet. But the Quran, in telling of the victory mentioned above, makes the remark that God prevents one folk by another with sense. It says that God uses the one to set limits on what is done by others, and if he did not, the earth would succumb to the plot. The view that God has those he likes, and those for wickedness he strikes among the nations, does contrast with the idea that all are cast in the same mould, with good among each of them in a party strung, but with the likelihood that they will all cause some mischief some day. So God allows each nation bound to rise against others on ground, to prevent one from gaining too much power on earth and in the pew. The balance of power is a thing quite different to what they sing in every land in anthems writ to glorify fatherland fit. The view parochial that came with the Bible, though not to blame, become a universal good as time goes on and as it should. But nations do not seem to go along with the gospel and show of the Quran that comes to set all needing limits when they're met. I pray the God of humankind, of this world and of all behind, may keep me by what means there be from treating others wickedly. By the same token I raise voice against the ones by their own choice who do injustice or some wrong to me as I'm where I belong. The verses miracles or signs, Quran 2:252. The verses miracles or signs of Allah have come down on sweet Muhammad by designs of Allah on the town. Few Christians seem to realize Quran 2:253. Few Christians seem to realize the Quran never did despise the prophets of the Bible clear, but always held them true and dear. To each it says God gave some gifts in view of the needs and the rifts of the folk to whom each one spoke. So many prophets God awoke. God himself came and spoke to one, to others he gave honor one. To Jesus God gave clear signs and strengthened him with his Spirit's hand. After those clear signs, if God willed, nations would not have fought and killed, except they chose to quarrel and believe or not, band against band. Despite the choices people make and try to change fire and earthquake, they have no effect on the plan of God for earth and every man. The human heart in troubled sleep sees nightmares of the dark and deep, and thinks that with a hand of power it might awake to save the hour. But all is an illusion wrought by expectations that are bought by hopes unfounded. God's will reigns over a world despite its stains. Though humankind may choose the wrong and sing a desecrating song, or choose the right and gain reward, his destiny lies with his Lord, his destiny lies with his Lord, and in the grace he might accord, whether prophetic signs give light, or plunge him in an evil plight. I pray that every sign revealed to Christ upon the earthly field produce a crop of love and joy in me that mercy may employ. The Quran addresses those who believe Quran 2:254. The Quran addresses those who believe and begs them to give something to relieve the hunger of the poor and dispossessed out of the bounties given and unguessed. The reason is a day is coming soon, or late, when there shall be no helping boon of bargaining, nor friendship, nor the rate of intercession at the village gate. Then those who have rejected faith shall see they are just evildoers on a spree. But there's just one thing here that bothers me. That's that faith is defined in charity. The sweet Christian is sure that faith is done when prayers are said and Christ is made God's Son, and the tongue does confess the heartfelt creed that Jesus died to answer human need. But the Quran implies, if not well stated, that faith is giving alms to the poor rated. Some say one's saved by faith, and that is true, for the poor saved by food brought into view. If I must choose between faith as a spark of inspiration in the inner dark, and faith as giving bread to hungry folk, I think I do prefer the latter stroke, at least if I am one to get the gift, and not the one to pay dollars in rift. No wonder Islam is not popular among the bankers for a faithful star. Allah, there is no God but He, Quran 2:25, 5. Allah. There is no God but He, the living, self-subsisting, free, and though His form I do not see, I know He is reality. He is eternal, and He takes no slumber nor sleep, but He wakes to find me breathing out a prayer to Him who finds me anywhere. He reigns over all things above, He touches earthly realm with love, and none can intercede with Him but by His leave and at His whim. He knows my past and what's to come, He knows my life and all its sum. I trust Him with my breath and tongue, to praise Him as I'm old or young. His secrets He reveals to none, except He wills, and then it's done. The secrets of the world and space are hidden in His power and grace. His throne extends on earth and sky. He is not weary, does not try to guard and keep all things at last. Nothing from His care is outcast. He is the most high on the earth. He's most high in the sky for worth. Supreme in glory and in power, I wait on Him from hour to hour. I see His dawn. His sun will set on all my life and all I get. Allah, there is no God but He from now until eternity. Let there be no forcing in faith. Quran 2:256. Let there be no forcing in faith is what is known to man and wraith. To force is simply to impede the soul and the soul's lofty creed. The mind and will know only two alternatives, the sweet and swill. If choice there be for humankind, it is a choice made by the blind. One does not cure the lack of sight by a display of power and might. The still small voice within alone can teach what's written down on stone. Truth stands out clear from error's way, to everyone come out to play. Whether in fact he's wrong or right, he's certain of truth in his sight. The evil one and Allah stand before the soul's fortress unmanned, and the one that the soul thinks good is the one she chooses as should. That grasping is one never breaks, no matter for what power's stakes. Perception is built into each and does not change by what they preach. I see one good and call him God, another born of human pod. May see the other and think fair, and follow that one everywhere. I do not hear the vain reproach, I know not all things that encroach. I only know that Allah hears, and God Himself knows what appears. All faiths that pressure and that teach, all those religions come to preach, all that make laws and that police, are vain religions come to fleece. Before the temple of the sky all temples are an empty try. Before the still small voice in heart all sermons are a failing art. With robin in her hidden nest I listen for the voice that's best. With hedgehog on the nightly prowl I pray the prayers of beast and fowl. No man can teach another what can only be learned from the gut, and from the meeting each may know of the divine beneath stars' glow. Allah protects those who have faith. Quran 2:257. Allah protects those who have faith from depths of darkness and from wraith. He will lead them out to the light, where there is no evil in sight. But He'll lead those who turn away from faith, from light, to go astray in depths of darkness, where there'll be companions dwelling in fire's spree. May God grant me what faith may stand upon a universe that's grand, with galaxies beyond command and emptinesses on each hand. May God grant me faithfulness in the valleys of temptation's sin, the humdrum of the daily task, the ecstasy where I may bask. In Iroquoian ways of speech the light is not knowledge to reach, nor guidance of the Spirit's good, but to be polite as I should. I see how many people know with witty wisdom to make show, but few are able at the test to remain polite with the best. My mind and heart are filled with such aphorisms that the wise touch, but I pray for ability to keep up simple courtesy. So then I shall walk in the light and keep from stumbling in the night. Let me keep that faith close to heart and ride with horse before the cart. Though God may let a kingdom rise, Quran 2:258. Though God may let a kingdom rise and give kings something to surmise, their power is just a rope to hang themselves with a sigh or a bang. Turn I on Abraham, who stood before a king whose pride then would ask him about his God, and he said he gives life and death's decree. In arrogance the king replied that he gives life and death beside. Of course that word was not quite true, death-giving was his only cue. But Abraham answered him well, my God also by mighty spell makes sun to rise up in the east, so make it rise by west at least. So arrogance of kings and men is silenced by both word and pen, and those who ridicule faith then are without guidance once again. I crave life when the sun comes up upon the lake with golden cup, and seek life while its rays descend upon the blooms I fail to tend. The fireweed that my pity let take over my garden is set to live and live again as I seek flames of life beneath the sky. May the life-giving God I trust raise up my body from the dust, and like the dandelion I love below, I'll praise the one above. God caused a man to die for just question. 2 verse 259. God caused a man to die for just 100 years and turn to dust, and then brought him in body back to life so that he had no lack. God asked him how long he was so, and he answered, a day to go, or part of a day, but not more. God laughed and said, look at your score. Your food is still good in its pouch, your donkey resting on his couch, and you have been a century dead, and your friends and your kin have fled. The joke is on those who reveal the strange beliefs they have at heel, that there's a soul that's made of naught, and it's eternal in the plot. The man was without consciousness, while his body was dead, I guess. There was no light at tunnel's end, no heavenly cloud or harp to bend. He simply did not know a thing of what went on by foot or wing. But when God resurrected him, he went on where he left off trim. There was no Barzac with a fiend. There was no angels' questions gleaned. There was no patter of the feet of mourners going down the street. While the man's body rotted there, his donkey lived immortal, fair, or so it seemed, a century, just resting from his slavery. So God teaches a man to know that he is dust and on the go, only as God will resurrect him, or give life and breath select. But donkeys are favoured and blessed, the favourites of God unguessed. Those who despise and ridicule the donkey take the name of fool. Some think the noble Qur'ans here Qur'an 2:260. Some think the noble Qur'an's here to proclaim like a chanticleer the doctrine of the Divine One out in empty universe spun. It's not oneness in the abstract, but oneness in the way to act and be divine and deity. There's just one God to set us free. Gods many and lords many run about the circle of the sun, but only great Jehovah can raise up to life woman or man. In Genesis, Abraham waits to waylay his God at the gates, demanding how that he should know that he'd have a son at Eve's glow. The same tales repeated in word of the Qur'an for what occurred when God told Abraham's heart stirred to take and sacrifice a bird. He had to watch the pieces spread out over the mountains, so sped to scare away the vultures fed on promises instead of bread. The question the man asks for truth in the Qur'an is one forsooth not mentioned in the Bible text. Abraham was a man perplexed. The central issue of the book sent to Muhammad, now just look, is not Tawheed, but how a God, just any God upon the sod, can resurrect a body cold and bring the dead to life and bold. So God commanded Abraham to spread the bits of birds, not ham, upon the mountain tops where they were in danger of vulture prey, and then to call the birds to him, and they came flying back as trim as any homing pigeon could who had been left alone in wood. From this Abraham came to know and not just believe in the show. He came to know, as all men may, who read Muhammad's word today, that God is wonderful and wise and can give life to gals and guys. The revolution in the barley ear, Quran 2:26-1. The revolution in the barley ear, which had the double rows of grain made dear, may well, I do not know, may well have gained the 700-fold Quran maintained. But in the Middle Ages, where I stand, the European produce was not grand, a threefold harvest was not a thing rare, of poverty most folk are unaware. There was not barley enough in the hand to feed a donkey with such kernels grand. A donkey had to make do with the food left over by the humankind and brood. That only makes me all the more one sure that alms in charity's redemption pure, and no investments greater on the earth than charity to feed the poor of worth. Return of 70,000% known today in bank and merchant house, as shown only to rogues and sharks among the great dishonest and the rulers of the state. Imagine planting 1 cent, and the tree that grew from it to its maturity bore 700 cents after the bloom along the boughs and all the twigs that zoom. The promise is made right after the sight of resurrection to body's delight, and seems as much a miracle to me as resurrection's immortality. God raises up in wealth and health as he sees fit in seed and in humanity. His pleasure is his own, and so his care is known in everything and everywhere. Those people who give of their wealth, Quran 2:262, those people who give of their wealth in Allah's cause and for the health, and not the detriment of those to whom they gave it, as they chose, like donkeys, will receive from God reward and praise upon the sod, and they shall not fear, no, nor grieve for what from Allah they receive. Kind words alone without a crumb, Quran 2:263. Kind words alone without a crumb, and covering the faults of some, are better far than charity, followed at last by injury. Some give, and then hurt those to whom they gave to, and do to their doom. Some get, and then hurt those who give, as though they're angry that they live. I'd rather be an ass without a word or crumb from human rout than be a churlish man and rake, ungrateful for my daily stake. Reward from God for charity, Quran 2:264. Reward from God for charity is cancelled when a man makes free to remind others of their debt of gratitude to him they get, or by an injury that's done to those by whom the gift is won. Some give just to be seen of men, and ignore God and judgment then. They're like a hard and barren rock with little soil upon its stalk, and rain falls and washes away what soil there is in just a day. Nothing they earn else can avail, since they reject faith and its pale, and are not guided by God's hand. They are a miserable band. They should take the example that the donkey gives where he is at, and do good without thought at all of what may enter in the stall.